Hey guys, I'm back from Rogue One and I'm gonna talk about it. I'm gonna get into spoilers, but first I'm gonna give my general opinion. I'm gonna try to keep this video at 20 minutes. I'm really bad about that, but I'm gonna try because my phone is only letting me record for like 20 minutes before it like fills up space and doesn't have any space anymore, and my videos just cut off. So I'm gonna try to avoid that from happening today, so I don't have to patch my videos together again. I really need a camera. And on top of that, YouTube is telling me now that my videos can't be over an hour. That's the first time I've ever gotten that, but again, nobody wants to watch a video longer than an hour anyway, so I'm gonna try to keep this short. Okay, so before I get into spoilers, Star Wars Rogue One, amazing, loved it. It had issues, and I'm going to talk about those in the spoilers, but in general, freaking amazing movie. So much classic Star Wars going on in that. All the practical stuff made it really feel like classic Star Wars, and you've got the classic stormtroopers. If what you really miss from Star Wars is the classic stuff, that 70s feel, this movie's got it. It is different from the other Star Wars movies. That's why it's a Star Wars story. For one thing, again, these aren't real spoilers. In the beginning, there's not an opening crawl, which is, you know, all that text information where it's telling you, sort of setting up the plot, catching you up to what's been going on with the Star Wars universe. It doesn't have that. It just says a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and then it starts the movie. Now, I am gonna say I kind of wish it had the crawl. I know it's separate from the main storyline, but the fact is this movie fits in right in with the main storyline to where you could watch this and then watch A New Hope, and it's like this movie ends like 5 minutes before or like an hour before A New Hope starts, you know? So it practically could be an installment of the movie, except that it's not about those characters at all. Although there are a lot of cameos from the main characters. Well, not the main. Well, some major characters and some minor characters from the original trilogy, and even from the prequel trilogy. Again, I'll get into that in the spoilers, but you will see some characters from the original and the prequel trilogy, yeah, the opening crawl thing. I mean, I've been reading Star Wars comics my whole life, and I've been playing Star Wars video games and this and that, and you always get the opening crawl, and it's one of those things that makes you feel like you're watching Star Wars. Not that this movie lacks any Star Wars feeling to it. It's just that I miss the crawl, but that's one of my little nitpicks, and I truly only have a couple of nitpicks, and that's one of them, and that's such a minor thing. I mean, it's fine. It has a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. You know, what more can you ask? Because it's not actually one of those main films from Star Wars, and it's a war movie for sure, in the sense that it is, you know, to me it was character driven, but some people are saying it's not so much. It's just action driven and all that. I don't think so. I think it does a good enough job making me love these characters. We came out loving these characters. I saw this with my sister and my mother, as I often do, and my sister and I, who are the Star Wars fans, we loved it. To our mom, it was just okay, but you know, she's not like she does go see all the Star Wars movies with us, but she's not like a Star Wars fan. My sister and I are huge fans, and I won't say that I preferred this movie. I won't say that I thought this movie was better than Force Awakens, because they're very different, and I think both of them were excellent. This one's more original, even though, again, we all know this movie is set right before A New Hope, so we kind of know where it's going. It's telling a story that you basically know how it's going to end. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen to the main characters. You have to make assumptions and see if it plays out like that. But you know, you know, they're on a mission, and you know how that mission turns out because you've seen A New Hope. So, and again, I'm avoiding spoilers, but I'm going to get to that in a second. So there's that, but it's still a very, it's its own story. I mean, it's like classic Star Wars in the sense that you can recall other movies with this, like Inglourious Bastards or this and that. It sort of makes you think of these other movies, the way it starts and the way it flows. And it's sort of got like this, the espionage side and of course the battle stuff. So it's a war movie more than the others because it doesn't have as much of the fantasy element and the lightsabers and the Jedi Knights and all that. There's a little of that stuff because, and this isn't really a spoiler, but we all know that Darth Vader's in it and he's awesome. I just got this figure, by the way. Awesome figure. This is a 6-inch Black Series Darth Vader. And my only complaint about it is the helmet. If I turn the head, the helmet separates and comes off. But it doesn't really... That's my little review of this figure. I love it, but that little helmet issue. But it's a minor quibble. Anyway, yeah, Darth Vader is in this movie. He's awesome in this movie. If you're a Darth Vader fan, you're going to love this movie and you're going to want to go see it. I will say, and this, again, I wouldn't call this a spoiler, but I thought he was going to have more screen time. I thought he was going to be a more major player than he was, but he's in like 2 parts of the movie. I'll save that for spoilers, but if you're a big Darth Vader fan, I mean, the second part that he comes out in the movie is so amazing that you have to see it. It's one of the best scenes in the movie, if not the best. But anyway, yeah, I'm not spoiling anything by saying that, I don't think. And I don't know what to say. It's just, it was such a good movie. I loved it so much. There are some... It has some characters in it that the actors are either deceased or they're much older now, and in the setting of the film they were much younger. So basically what I'm saying is a few classic characters appear in this movie in CGI form, and so you probably heard of this already, and to some people it's a problem and to some people it's not. Basically in this film, I don't want to give spoilers away, so until I get into the spoilers, but the CGI is, in my opinion, and I'll complain when it's really bad, but in my opinion, the character that they use it on the most, the one who appears the most, it's very passable CGI. It's the kind of CGI that if you didn't know the actor was deceased, you would probably not really realize that you weren't watching a real person, unless you're one of these people who's really, your eyes are trained to like catch that. But knowing that he's deceased, that's what makes you know that it's not real, and then you can see the CGI tells the certain like uncanny valley aspect, but it is very slight. It's extremely slight, it's there, but it's very slight. Now there are a couple of other characters that they have to have been done in CGI, because I don't know if the actors are still alive, but they certainly are not as young as they were in A New Hope, and they do appear briefly. This is not a spoiler, a couple of X-Wing pilots appear that are from A New Hope, and I'm pretty sure it's not other actors. I'm pretty sure it's CGI or something, and they look amazing. They're only, because you only see them for a couple seconds, and that's the thing that makes that work. But then the final scene of the movie, you see another character done in CGI, and that's the one that didn't work for me, and it was a little awkward. But I'll get into that later, and if I have any issue with the movie, it was that. It's a movie that, like I say, it doesn't have as much it has a little bit of, the only lightsaber you see is Darth Vader's. It has a little bit of Force stuff because there's one character that's strong in the Force. You get this information from the trailers, so this isn't really me giving this away. There's a blind man who is skilled in the Force, basically, and that's the whole of the like the Force stuff and the fantasy stuff. Otherwise, it's like a war film, basically. I mean, it's sci-fi. You've got aliens and you've got droids. And that droid is hilarious, and it's you know, it doesn't have that fantasy element to it, so it's very hardcore, and it's darker than any Star Wars you've seen before. But it's a very different kind of movie than the main saga because it's such a war movie. I normally wouldn't like that kind of movie, but they do it with enough Star Wars flair that it didn't lose me at any point, you know, because unless a war movie, like a straight up war movie, is super super good and super super charming, then it's not usually going to be my bag, my you know, it's not going to be my thing. It's not going to be my cup of tea. And the same thing if it's like with action movies. Unless they have like strong fantasy elements or something, if they're just pure action movies, I'm usually not as willing to watch them unless they're really freaking well done, really charming and really entertaining or something like a Die Hard or something like that, you know. But this movie, it's a different kind of Star Wars, but it's definitely Star Wars, and that's why it works. It's awesome. The cast is excellent. I'm in love with Felicity Jones now, which is saying a lot because despite my age, I'm rarely in love with girls over 30. But Felicity Jones has it. And she's Jyn Erso. She's basically the main character, although there's also Cassian Andor, who's played by Diego Luna. And they don't ever get to the point of, oh, well, this is a little bit of a spoiler. They don't ever get to like a real romantic point in the movie, but they do have a thing, you know, kind of like they have a chemistry. Well, I hate to use that word, but that's what they have. And I mean, you can imagine it would build on you know, if there was another movie with these characters, you can imagine it going somewhere. But I don't want to get into the spoilers until I'm about to get into spoilers. But let me just say, excellent cast. I loved everything about it. I can see how the beginning could be a little confusing because they do a lot of planet jumping, just, you know, showing you things happening here and here and here that tie into the story. You know, I can understand, I can believe that it wouldn't be easy to follow for some people, especially if you weren't just a Star Wars person, you know. But I didn't have a huge problem with it. It just made me wary that, like, you know, I wanted it to start focusing as it was going, because it was jumping around so much, just showing us this and this and this. I wanted it to find its focus and start going from there, and it did. It's just, you know, there was a moment of worry at the beginning that it was going to be too, I don't know, too drudgery, you know, too much drudgery with that, and just like not getting to being a fun movie and not getting us attached to the characters. But it eventually did get into that, and it wasn't too long of a wait for that. If there was anything clunky, it was that beginning part just to get to the point to where we were on board with the characters and who they were, and it happened, so it was cool. And if there was anything else about it, it was just the CGI characters that were done, the humans that were done entirely CGI, and that's just going to differ from person to person on whether or not that's a problem, because, like I say, for the most part, I found them to be passable. And when I say passable, that means it was freaking good. It was freaking amazing, really. And there was just the slightest bit of, I can tell you're CGI. Just the slightest bit. And I mean, I can deal with that because I know this actor's deceased, and some people will say, well, why didn't you just get another actor to play him? Well, it's like they're trying to mimic an actor who was alive, and you're trying to, like, mimic his, like, him at that particular time in his life. It's not like recasting somebody to play a younger version of them. It's different. You're recasting somebody to play the same age, and that's going to be way harder to do that effectively. I think they went the right route using the CGI. I just, for the other character at the very last scene, I felt like that one wasn't ready. They needed to work on that some more. That's how I felt about that. Now, hopefully I can get into the spoilers and finish before my phone says it's full, but I feel like it's about to happen, so I might get cut off here and have to splice in another video of me talking about the spoiler stuff. But I'm going to start now. Spoiler alert. Here I go with the spoiler stuff, okay? How do I go into this? I guess as far as spoilers, well, let me just give a rough plot here. It's about, if you didn't know this already, and this is hardly a spoiler, this movie is about how Princess Leia got the plans to the Death Star and the trigger to destroy it. And that was one of the awesome things about this movie, because usually when you watch A New Hope, and you're always like, gee, that's kind of weird that they had this like passage you could go through that seemed to be like the sole purpose is to like destroy the Death Star. Why would they design it that way? And here you find out why they designed it that way, and it's because the man who was forced to build this machine, this Death Star, design it, he didn't want to, and so he put in this little secret way of destroying it, and for the purpose of getting to the Rebel Alliance so that they could do it. So it was designed to have this like self-destruct, basically. Not self-destruct, but, you know, a way to destroy it. And so basically they made this movie that fixed a problem with the original. That's pretty cool, because they did it so well. And basically it's the plot that the scientist is being forced to create this super weapon, and he has a daughter who he sends into hiding, and she grows up and is recruited by the rebellion to help them find her father. And they say they're gonna like rescue him from the Imperials, but really they're planning to just execute him themselves so that he can't, you know, cause more problems like this. But yeah, basically one of the cool things about this movie is it shows the dark side of the rebellion and how they, you know, they'll do just about anything to get their stuff done too, you know. And that was pretty interesting, you know. It showed a darker side, how there were some characters in the rebellion who could be pretty ruthless with their cause, you know. And that was interesting. You know, it's a darker movie, it's still obvious they're the better side, you know, but it shows that they're not perfect either, and that was really interesting. It was a neat way to go about that. And this movie has a lot of like deaths and executions. They said when they made these side stories they were going to be darker, and it is darker. This is probably the darkest Star Wars movie I've seen. I mean, I know Empire is dark and everything, but there's a lot of death in this movie. Huge spoiler: all the main characters in this movie die. I said it was a huge spoiler. I said I was in the spoiler zone. That was something I was afraid of. A lot of people suspected it. I mean, you would have seen you would have seen the main characters, any surviving characters from this. You would have seen them in A New Hope if they survived. So a lot of people went into this feeling like, there's no way that these characters live. Well, they don't. I was hoping Jyn Erso was gonna live. I was hoping at least a few of them were gonna survive. Everybody dies. Everybody who was created for this installment, basically. I've heard that Forrest Whitaker's character, which was in much less of this movie than I thought, he was really not in it much. I actually have heard that he's in, is it Clone Wars? As an animated character, that was his introduction. I'm catching up right now with Clone Wars. I'm basically eager to get to watching Rebels, but I I'm so behind on Clone Wars. I'm like in the beginning of season 3. I have like, I own season 1, but that's all I have. I've been watching it on Netflix, and I'm like going through it so slow because sometimes I find the show kind of boring. Yeah, I hate to say that as a Star Wars fan, but sometimes it's a little too, I don't know. It's like watching the prequels. The prequels can be, it's not that the prequels are boring, they're really not. The characters can be kind of bland. And basically, Clone Wars is a series about the prequel characters. You know, it's the prequel series, cartoon series. I want to watch Rebels. I think I'm going to love Rebels, but I don't want to get into it until I'm finished with Clone Wars. So, but I haven't gotten to this Forrest Whitaker character, I don't think. So, I'm looking forward to seeing that. But anyway, so yeah, we pick up with Jyn Erso, who is the daughter of this this scientist that the Empire has control on. So she's grown up. She was being raised by Forrest Whitaker's character, but they don't show any of that. They just show him, you know, they just show little bits of him, and he basically raised her till she was 16, but you just hear about that. You don't actually see it. And then he like dumped her somewhere, and he says it was just to protect her because the Empire was getting too close. So from there on, she was just kind of on her own, and she ends up, you know, being taken to jail or something. She was arrested, I guess, by the Empire. So, but then she gets rescued by the rebels because they want to use her to get to the father. And so she's sent on a mission with this little group and one of them is that robot voiced by Andy Tudyk. Is it Andy Tudyk? Alan Tudyk, who is a very funny character, great character. He's like he's a snarky, pretty badass Imperial robot that's been like reprogrammed to work for the rebels, and he's totally an awesome rebel. And as the film goes on, he's more and more awesome, and he's got like all the funny lines and everything. He's got the most personality in the movie. I loved all the characters, but he's got the most personality, because we see, I don't know, there's some characters we could have seen more, we could have had more dialogue from. It's a war movie more than it is. I think that the characters are strong enough in this movie, but yeah, it's, you know, it's not like the classic or the main saga, which is like totally about the characters. This is about the characters, but it's also about the rebellion itself. That's what it's about, you know, getting the rebellion solidified, because the rebellion in the course of this film is very unstable. Even Mon Mothma is not sure it's going to work, and it's really not until Felicity Jones' character Jyn Erso and her group managed to get the planets of the Death Star and get them to Leia, which is how the movie ends. It's really not until that happens, that's what makes it happen. That's what makes the rebellion work. That's what makes them say, okay, this is, you know, we're going to be able to do this. We're going to be able to make a difference here. So crucial. This story is crucial. It's like they've written it as though it's crucial. So these characters are super important, really, to the whole Star Wars story. But anyway, so when they're searching for the father, and they do find him, and he gets killed, not by the rebellion, although they intended to kill him, but is it by the rebellion? Maybe indirectly, but anyway, I'm trying to remember how he died. But you know, I need to see this movie like 100 more times. But I need to see it at least one more time in theaters, because you know there are a lot of explosions, there's a lot of shooting, a lot of people getting killed, and you can lose track of how people get killed sometimes. But and also I was enjoying a lovely pizza because this was at the Alamo Drafthouse, and it was after midnight, and but so I really need to see this again. But yeah, the father does get killed, but not before his daughter finds out about the secret way to destroy the Death Star. And to prove this and get this information and get it done, you know, they've got to go get the the disc that he's made. I think they called it a tape actually, that shows everything, all his plans. You know, so their mission now, they get a bigger group together, and they go on a mission to retrieve these the Death Star plans, and so that becomes the climax mission of the movie, and at the very end of the movie, well, throughout the movie, you're seeing their side, and of course, you're also seeing the Imperial side, and it's so classic, man. All the ships and all the scenes, and the big thing is, for us, that made us like cry and freak out is when Peter Cushing comes on screen, and yes, he's all digital, but he's really well done. He's so well done. Now, the problem is when he starts to speak, there's a certain thing that they haven't nailed with human characters and speaking. There's something about it that makes it look, it gives away the CGI, but it was good enough. It was definitely good enough to make you to blow you away. It really was. I mean, almost to that point to where you would totally believe this was a human. And maybe if you didn't know, if you weren't looking for it, because you know this actor's deceased, so you know it's CGI, so you're kind of looking for that giveaway. So maybe you wouldn't notice it. I don't know if you didn't know he was a deceased actor. But it was amazing. I was very impressed for the most part with Peter Cushing there. And I'm glad they did it that way. I thought they did an amazing job. But I'm going to get to the one that I didn't like as much later. But yeah, it was so cool seeing this Star Wars movie with Grand Moff Tarkin and Darth Vader. And yeah, you know, you have a scene with Darth Vader voiced by James Earl Jones, and that part's awesome. And I don't remember if there were any other little parts with Vader. I only remember two offhand, and there was that one that was shorter, but then there's one at the end. Peter Cushing's character, Grand Moff Tarkin, comes out quite a bit, but at the very towards the end, there's this. They get the plans basically, and they get them off the planet before the planet is destroyed, and Jyn Erso and her whole group along with it. A lot of them die in battle through the process of trying to get the plans, and then, you know, the planet that they're on gets blasted by the Death Star, and it's this dramatic, like, nuclear bomb type scene where you see these two lead characters, Jyn Erso and Cassian Andor, and they're like holding each other. And I was saying earlier, they never really got into romance, but you know, obviously it was about to go there. But they just, you know, hug each other, and they're holding each other as the light is coming towards them of that, you know, explosion that is destroying the whole planet. And meanwhile, they did manage to get the information off planet, and you start to follow from that point. Darth Vader is chasing after it, and he's on the ship that it's on, and he's going from room to room as these rebels are passing this disc. I'm gonna call it a disc, this tape, whatever. They're passing it from hand to hand as Darth Vader is slashing through them with his lightsaber, and like a horror movie, and it is intense and it is scary, and you see rebels pressed up against the window, help us, you know, while Darth Vader is like slashing through them, and he's yanking them around with the Force and just slashing with his lightsaber. It's the most badass you've ever seen Darth Vader, ever. It totally is. And he just plows through, but he just misses the last door closing as a ship flies off, and he's standing there and the ship's flying away, and they've got the plans to the Death Star. And I think, I don't remember if that was a ship that Leia was on, or I think they take that to the ship and hand it to Leia, yeah. And like the last shot of the movie, you see like a hooded Leia from behind, and somebody like goes up to her, and she turns around, and they give her the, you know, the plans to the Death Star, and she like takes off her hood, and it's CGI young Leia with the cinnamon roll hair buns, and it's really not up to par like with the Peter Cushing one. It's just not as good. Now, this is not a very long scene that we see her, but it's a little too long considering she takes off her hood. I forget who, they ask her what it is, and that they hand it to her, and she says, hope, you know, because there's a theme of hope and how hope is what rebellions are built on. And then she when she says it, she smiles real big. Like, I've only seen Leia smile that big when they've just like totally defeated a bunch of imps, and it was just a little weird because we just saw all the characters we've grown to love in this movie get horribly destroyed, and then she has this big smile on her face and says hope at the end of the movie, and you're like, can you say that a little more solemnly, because I just saw everybody die. And that was a little disappointing. She should have just said it in a more solemn way, and I would have felt so much better. I felt like they did a little goofy, and maybe they needed to go back in special edition that last minute of the movie. But no, it wasn't even probably a minute. Maybe it was a minute. I don't know. But the CGI on her really looked like CGI. It looked kind of like, two things come to mind. The Robert Zemeckis motion capture stuff that they used to do. They did a bunch of movies with, and Disney did some of those movies. And it was like always kind of like, it was heavy in that what is the term? I said it earlier. Uncanny Valley. Heavy Uncanny Valley stuff with that whole Robert Zemeckis thing where he did A Christmas Carol, and that one's actually a pretty good movie, but he was really into this like motion capture stuff, and it just didn't look good. What was that really? The Christmas one, Polar Express. I still haven't really watched that, and I love Christmas movies, and I love Tom Hanks, but that movie looks really ugly. And maybe it would have been a charming story, but it just looks ugly. And for a moment, that's what this Leia kind of reminded me of. And also, she reminded me of the fairies from Maleficent. Now, those fairies were pretty awful. Partly they were just horribly portrayed, but they looked horrible. They had like giant heads and little bodies, and it was just, I liked the movie Maleficent. I loved the movie Maleficent, but I hated the fairies. The three, you know, the I forget their names. They're different. They have different names in the movie Maleficent than they did in the animated one. But the blue fairy, the green fairy, the red fairy. But anyway, yeah, Leia looked like maybe her head was a little too big for her body or something. I don't know. She looked really CGI, like way CGI. Peter Cushing did not. Peter Cushing, there was just a slight giveaway with something about how he moved his mouth or something. Just some slight giveaway that made me think of like certain cartoon characters maybe. He reminded me of like, I don't know, Scar from The Lion King or something, and he shouldn't, you know. But he was totally passable and very impressive for the most part. It was just a slight giveaway with him. With Leia, it was pretty bad. But this was just such a brief scene in the whole movie, and having that scene there was great. It was just wasn't well done enough, and it kind of sucked that was the very last shot of the movie. And I would have felt so much better about it at least if she didn't have that huge goofy smile when she said hope, because it should have been a little bit more solemn. Maybe a slight smile would have been okay, but she was like, and it was a little too much. But you know, we're talking about like the last few seconds of an amazing movie. Amazing movie. I talked about the blind character who was not a Jedi, but he was strong in the Force. I don't know if he had actual powers, but he was at least a religious zealot in the Force, and he seemed to be strong. I mean, he had to have been, because he was doing some mad like martial arts, and yet totally blind. He was just destroying a troop of stormtroopers. So yeah, that guy was awesome. That guy was one of the highlights of the movie. And the robot, and Felicity Jones. Oh, I love Felicity Jones now. I haven't seen her in anything else, I don't think, except Amazing Spider-Man. She was gonna be Black Cat, but of course they stopped with those movies, and that's kind of sad because that would have been awesome. But fantastic movie, fantastic cast. My quibbles are very minor. My main one is Leia at the very end, and it's just because I feel like they needed to either redo that or improve it, you know, in some way. It needed to be a little better. I didn't have any problem with Peter Cushing CGI. He, you know, while it was still had a little bit of that uncanny valley stuff, it might have just been because I know he's dead, so I was like watching for it. But yeah, this was amazing. But it's more of a war movie. It's probably not going to be for everybody. If what you love about Star Wars is Jedi Knights and a lot of lightsaber stuff, although Vader goes crazy and slashes people up. Well, he doesn't go crazy, but he gets hardcore towards the end. I mean, this is a hardcore movie. This is a war movie, and it's brutal, and it made me cry. It made me cry a lot. Partially just for the nostalgia of every time I saw a character from previous films, but also just because it's got some great stuff in it. It's got some great drama. Really sad, some really sad stuff, but it made me laugh. It was excellent. It was just excellent. Talking about other characters who appeared, let's see, I mentioned Leia, Vader, Leia's adopted father, Bail Organa, played by Jimmy Smits from the prequels. He's back here. He looks older, but he looks a heck of a lot better than Obi-Wan's looking around this time period, which is pretty interesting. I don't know, was he supposed to be younger? I guess he was supposed to be younger than Obi-Wan. But I thought that was so cool. And they brought him back, and he mentions Obi-Wan, not by name, but you know he's talking about Obi-Wan. And then he mentions Leia before we see her at the end. And if you didn't, he doesn't, so they don't actually say this is Princess Leia's adopted father. So if you didn't know that, well, then you won't know it. I don't think my mom knew that that's who that character was, but I thought it was really cool that this movie tied the prequels to the new Disney stuff, because I mean, I know that they weren't throwing away the prequels, but it's still nice to see things tied together. I don't hate the prequels. They have major issues, and I'm totally into talking about those issues, but I don't hate them. I wish Disney made them. They would have been way better. They had problems, but there are things I love about the prequels, and there are things everybody loves about the prequels. There are characters that everybody loves in the prequels, whether it's Darth Maul or some other characters. I mean, there's things, you know, there's something in the prequels that you loved. There's always something. Even when you hated, even if you hated them, a lot of people hate them. I've been a Star Wars fan. I was born in '75, and I can't remember when I wasn't a Star Wars fan. I had, you know, the action figures. Those were my toys. I didn't get G.I. Joes. I didn't get He-Man or anything. I got Star Wars action figures and a lot of Disney stuff. That was my stuff. But and some other stuff. But my main thing was always Star Wars toys. So I've always been a Star Wars fan, but I don't hate the prequels. They could have been a lot better. Maybe they weren't even really necessary, but what movies are really necessary? Not too many. That's why I don't like when people say that about sequels and stuff. Well, this movie didn't need a sequel. Well, if a character is interesting, then you can tell more stories with it. It's all about how good your writing is and how good your directing is. That makes the movie better. But, well, I was hoping that wouldn't happen. My phone cut me off again. I don't know what's up. I used to be able to get 2 hours of video on this phone, and now I can only get 40 minutes ad, and that's when I actually had to delete like 3 apps just to get 40 minutes on there. From 20. It was giving me 20. Yeah, I used to be able to get like 2 hours. I don't know what's going on. But anyway, what was I saying about? I was talking about sequels, prequels, midquels. Look, if you have good characters, there's always a possibility of more good stories. There's no reason to say, oh, you know, that sequel should never happen. There's no need for more story. It's like you know, I know people who are like, you know, let's not make any more Ghostbusters movies. There's, you know, we've already seen it. It's done. It's like the characters are great. That's why we have. I know they've already ruined it because they rebooted it, but you had like a whole like cartoon series because those characters, you could go infinite with those stories. You can always do that with any great characters. You can just, it's just the writing. It's just, do you have the writing? That's why you have comics. There's comics right now carrying on the stories of Back to the Future, Bill and Ted, all that stuff. Some of them are good, some of them aren't. It just depends on the writing. There's so many Star Wars stories out there. They've all been like written off now by Disney, and they're making their own. And honestly, I used to have so many Star Wars books. I sold them all because they're not canon anymore. Some of them I hadn't even cracked open yet, which is bad because I didn't get much money for them. But I mean, you know, I was like, you know, this isn't even canon. I kept my comics though because the art is still great art, so I still love them. But you know, yeah, I'm always ready for more stories of characters that I loved. Sadly, they killed off all these characters, so there's not gonna be any more Jyn Erso. That is tragic. I love Jyn Erso. That was so tragic. Killing them off. I know that it would have, not killing them off would have seemed kind of like a weak move, but I like the characters, and we could have had a lot more happen with them. And then, yeah, I mean, you know, you get more dramatic points for actually killing characters off, but I don't know. I was gonna say some other stuff in it, and my mind went blank just now. But this movie, fantastic. I won't say it's better than Force Awakens because I feel like it's too much of a different kind of movie. It's it's totally a Star Wars movie. It's not that it doesn't. It's just a totally new kind of Star Wars movie, and that's great. I can't wait for more of these Star Wars stories. Keep them coming. They're great. I can't wait to own this one and watch it again and again. I would like to go see this at the IMAX maybe. I definitely want to go see it again while it's still in theaters. I saw Force Awakens like probably 4 times in theaters. I would do that with this one, but the funds, I don't have the funds this time, so hopefully I can get one more viewing out of it. But I totally would. I would totally go see this 4 times. I can't wait. I can't wait for the Blu-ray. Excellent movie. I really want to get another look at that Leia scene because that was... Oh, I was talking about characters that appeared. Okay, I'm going to keep this short. Characters that appeared besides Bail Organa, I mentioned, and that was really awesome. Like I said, that tied the prequels in, and I was kind of waiting for more tie-in from Disney to the prequels. Because, you know, they happened. We got to accept that they happened, whether you like them or not, and they are canon. So let's not, you know, there was some good things in there. There was some good characters. I already went over that, but also cameos, R2 and 3PO. I was like, kind of like, should R2 and 3PO be on Yavin? Because this is on Yavin, because you do see a lot of Yavin 4, and we see a lot of that, and this was before they hooked up with Luke and all that, so I was like, should they be here? Because yeah, Bail Organa was there, but I thought he left before they left, but maybe he hadn't left yet, I don't know. But anyway, there's a really brief cameo of R2 and 3PO, and what else? That was just like fan service, you know. It's a Star Wars movie, and they're in every Star Wars movie. I don't think they're going to be able to continue that. When they come out with like a Boba Fett movie and Han Solo before he met, you know, Luke and everybody, I don't see how they're going to squeeze R2 and 3PO in those. They're going to have to give up on that at some point. They're not, that's not like working in, my mind's going blank again. I was going to say, Marvel Comics, Stan Lee. It's not like squeezing Stan Lee in a movie. It's trying to squeeze R2 and 3PO in is a little harder, but And also, we see Dr. Evazan and Ponda Baba. Dr. Evazan is that guy who's like in A New Hope. He's all, he doesn't like you. I don't like you either. You know, we're wanted men. You know, that whole scene. That guy and his sidekick Ponda Baba, the Walrus Man, they have a cameo in this movie where they do a similar but briefer routine when they bump into Jyn Erso. So that was pretty funny. And maybe that's all of the cameos. Of course, you know, the ones that I mentioned, Leia and Grand Moff Tarkin. Grand Moff Tarkin is not a cameo. He has a major role in the movie. I wouldn't call the Vader scene a cameo because he's got 2 scenes. The second one is pretty hardcore and it's lengthy enough. But I did think that Vader was going to be a more heavy player. I think I expected to see Vader. We saw Grand Moff Tarkin quite a bit, and I kind of expected to see Vader that length of time going into the movie, but it turned out it was Grand Moff Tarkin we saw more. But we saw Vader. They made up for it with that climax with Vader. I'm sure I'm forgetting a million things I wanted to mention about this. I wish my sister was shooting this with me. It's harder to make videos with my sister in the den right now because my mom's visiting, and we came home and my mom went right to sleep. So yeah, so it's just me, and that's all I can remember. It was a fantastic movie. I loved it. I highly recommend it. Go check it out. Different kind of Star Wars movie, darker. A lot of people get killed. Everybody new gets killed, but excellent. I want to marry Felicity Jones. But yeah, great movie. Go see it.